everyone, once again, and welcome to another episode of Inside IUE Sports. I'm your host, Caleb Gillock, and today on today's episode, we're going to talk about tennis and track and field. But first, we're going to talk about tennis with head coach Erskine Ratchford. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Great. It's good to be here.
Well, let's start off by talking about some of the most recent matches. There's 3 of them. Let's start with the March 30th one at Hanover College. It was a 2-7 loss. Tell us about that one.
Hanover's a good team. They've got some really strong players. We went into that match trying to get prepared for the outdoor season. The weather and conditions have limited our ability to get out and actually play in outdoors. So we played indoors, but when you go outdoors, there's a big difference. You got to get kind of acclimated to the conditions. So that match was not only a match that we played, but it's also a chance to try to get used to the great outdoors. Our doubles played pretty good. I was kind of pleased with the way we hit. You know, we're working on, again, trying to be a little more aggressive. There's some good players on Hanover's team, particularly their top 3 players. In singles, in our match play against them, we had a chance to win 1, 2, and 3 singles. I felt like we could play competitively. We ended up winning 2 and 3, and I think maybe a little bit more. We could have pushed 1, and that would have made a great statement if we could have taken on their top players and come right out of that. But I think it gave us an opportunity to get some solid play under us and help kind of get us prepared for the rest of the season.
Now, you also mentioned that there's a difference between indoor and outdoor. What's that difference?
Well, indoors, it's more like a confined space. You know, your depth perception and everything around you, it just seems like a more controlled atmosphere. When you go outside, you've got the wide open spaces, sun, wind, and just your whole perception of things, because everything's so open, changes your play a little bit. And when you go from indoors to outdoors, you've got to get used to that, particularly, you know, when you're changing sides and you're looking into the sun and things like that. Wind conditions, you know, wind may blow one way and then you go to the other side, now it's into you or away from you. All these things take a little getting used to. Ball bounces perhaps a little differently in each court. You really need to get that outdoor play in before you can be at your best in outdoor matches.
All right, well, taking a look at the April 10th matchup, that was at Asbury University, a 0-9 loss. Tell us about that one.
Asbury is our, I think they're going to probably win the conference. They've played Southeast and beat them, and I think they will probably beat Brescia, but, you know, that's my gazing into the crystal ball right there. They have some really good players, an extremely strong team. You know, we played against some of the players, again, that I think are really the best of the conference. We could play and hit with them. I think that was, you know, when we first went in again, we still hadn't had all that time to get our outdoor practice in, because during the time from Hanover to Asbury, the rain and things like that were occurring were not giving us the opportunity to get the full extent of our practices in and during that time. So we got to Asbury. It's a windy, wide open place on a hill. You really need to be ready to play in those kind of conditions. And the players are good. They got some really big hitting players. I felt like we played well in our doubles and singles again. And even though we didn't fare as well as I'd hoped we would in the final result, I think the players realized they can hit with those players. Now they need to somehow work with their game so they're not trying to overhit. When you sometimes play a really strong player, your sometimes normal response is, well, I'm going to hit it back equally hard, and that may or may not work for you. Probably does not work. So, and it wasn't really necessary, but without having played some matches, you're not quite sure of that. So we learned from that. You know, we got, again, some really tough competition to lead us on to our next match.
Well, the next match was April 11th. That was a 7-0 win here at home against Alice Lloyd. Tell us about that match.
Alice Lloyd's a spirited team. You know, they got a lot of camaraderie. We like that bunch of guys. They love to play tennis. Probably not one of the stronger teams that we have, but, you know, they always give it their best. It gave us a chance, you know, again, with our prior matches and building our momentum to really get a chance to be more involved in what we'd like to do, you know, executing our strategy and play out there. So the match went fairly well for us there. You know, we won our doubles matches and our singles matches. I was pleased with the way people played. We played more of a poised, controlled type game, hit the ball hard when necessary, but we also were patient and set up the points. So all around, I liked the way we were developing our game and getting our match play together.
There are also a lot of rainouts this season. I mean, you mentioned that earlier. There's 6 of them to be exact. Tell us about all the rain this season.
This has been one of the most difficult seasons we've ever had to deal with. If it wasn't raining, it was either windy or cold, making it very difficult to get out there. And you really need a lot of that outdoor practice there. You know, we can get out and do our practice routines or drills, our challenge matches. It gives you that opportunity to get that in there. So I'm certainly hoping that next spring's better, because it really, when we have to cancel and reschedule, we start compacting all these matches back to back. And sometimes, you know, if you get like 2 or 3 or 4 matches in a row, the physical toll's tough, and it's tough academically on the players. You know, I don't like to have them miss too much of the class there. So our last 2 weeks coming up here, we're going to be really pressed with a lot of matches.
All right, well, let's take a look at a couple of those matches. That's going to be the first one I'm going to talk to you about, the 19th at Brescia. Tell us about what you expect to see there.
Brescia's a strong team, too. They've got a number of players from overseas. These players are very skilled and very competitive players. It'll be a tough challenge for us. We enjoy playing them. We know some of the guys on the team there, so we'll look forward to it. But it'll be a strong match, and fortunately, it'll be at our location, and look forward to people coming out and seeing it.
All right, then you finish up the season at home against Central State at 4 p.m. That's on April 21st and 22nd. Tell us about that one.
They're a team just over in Ohio, and they're, I think, a fairly good team. You know, they're kind of developing their program too. We look forward to playing that, and it gives us a chance to sort of work on our skills there in terms of match play. This is going to be not only a match for us to try to win, certainly, and do well, but we'll use this sort of as a springboard to lead us into our conference tournament.
All right. Well, we never had a chance to have a season preview show this year, so let's talk about 5 of the primary players on the team. Okay. Let's start with the junior, Connor Kramer.
Connor's playing 1 for us now. He's really worked on his game. He's a very focused person. When he's out there, he doesn't let things distract him. You know, he goes about the business of playing each point. Don't have to say a lot to him. Sometimes, you know, during the match, we may talk about a player that he's playing and try to get an idea where the weaknesses and things are to exploit. But he hits a great ball. He moves well around the court, and you know, I rely a lot on him. You know, I can just know when he goes out there, doubles or singles, he's going to put 100% out there.
All right. How about a senior, Derek Blank?
Derek's playing too. Derek is an equally competitive guy. He moves well around the court, has lots of shots. He can pull some shots out that, you know, pretty artistic, and you know, they're pretty impressive too. So he plays well again at doubles and singles. He plays with Connor in doubles, and he's, you know, had some good wins. Hanover beat their number 2 player, which was a very strong player, and he beat him decisively. You know, Derek has that capability of really elevating his game, and again, just fun to watch him play.
Right. How about a freshman, Colton Shipley?
Colton has a strong baseline game. His game is sort of constructed around his forehand, which is like a bazooka that he fires off repeatedly. But, you know, he has also other good shots. You know, his backhand, he has a complete game. Very competitive guy. He's a real fighter out there, and loves to hit the ball hard. Probably one of the, off the forehand, probably the hardest hitting guy we have on our team.
All right, then there's a junior, Ethan Talby. How about him?
Ethan has been working on his game. He's really done a great job in elevating his play. His serve has become a good weapon. He's capable with his height and strength to really hitting a strong first serve. We're working on developing that so that it's more consistent. He can use that as a weapon. He moves well around the court. Forehand and backhand strokes are good. So we try to take advantage of that and use that in our play at his position.
All right. And lastly, a freshman, Seth Gard. How about him?
Seth is one of the guys from Northeastern. He's been working on his game. He's got, I think he's a player that, again, kind of builds his game around his forehand. He's been developing his backhand, too, and just taking some good improvements in that area. He does well at the position, and what we're working on him is to develop consistency and shot selection, to help him develop his competitive play at fifth position there.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add about the team of this season?
No, I just welcome everybody to come out and watch and cheer for the Red Wolves there and see the guys work. Great bunch of guys.
All right, Coach. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining me. Okay. If you'd like to know more about the men's tennis team, be sure to go to IUERedwolves.com and check out their page. We'll be right back with more Inside IUE Sports.
This is where a busy mom can work toward a bachelor's degree from a top national university during softball practice. It's where a service member can continue his college studies from anywhere in the world, and where you'll benefit from one of the country's most effectively delivered online programs.
Woohoo!
So, if you've ever wondered if a college education is really worth it, this is where you'll see that it is. This is Indiana University East Online.
And welcome back to Inside IUE Sports. It's time to talk about track and field, who just had a big weekend at the Little State Championships. Joining me to do so is head coach Brett Crowley. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Caleb, thanks again for having me.
Well, a lot to talk about. Of course, Little State is open to all non-NCAA D1 programs. Just tell us what the meet was like.
It's probably one of the more prestigious meets that we'll go to prior to our conference meet. You have almost all of the strongest, NEI schools in Indiana, along with Vincennes, the Division II schools, St. Joe's, University of Indianapolis, all with extremely strong athletes. Going to a two-day event that mimics a conference event, and probably some of the strongest athletes that we'll see compete in one venue in almost every track event that can be offered. So it's a unique atmosphere. And tries to mimic kind of the Olympic atmosphere. There are awards podiums and everything else in between. It's just an excellent opportunity for us to face the best of the best and use that opportunity to get better.
How many teams were competing in that?
I'm no mathematician. I think there were at least 14, 15 teams this time around. Not all the Indiana Division III schools attend or choose to attend. And we're hopefully that will change in the future.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's talk about the first day. It was a two-day deal. Clint Swanson, he finished the 400-meter dash and set a school record. Tell us about that as he made the finals.
Yeah, in this aspect, it was a qualifying run, and Clint did not treat that as such. He's had an excellent spring, followed through the following day by finishing 7th after qualifying on the 400. But he looked extremely smooth, extremely strong on a very windy day. We had a lot of crosswinds, a lot of swirling winds, and Clint managed to again put forth his best effort.
Allie Can, sophomore, she also set a school record in the 400 hurdles at 1:15.63. Tell us about that one.
Allie, again, getting stronger in this particular event. Her hurdle form for the 110, she's not quite as quick, I think, as she wants to be, but it parlays over into her endurance running. And she really has excellent form, ran an excellent race, just missed qualifying by a second, actually, to be in the top 9 and another Little State award winner.
Right.
Along those lines, a little more work on that particular event. I think Allie could go even lower than a minute 15, but she paced this race very well, set a school record, and really set a pretty good tone for the day. Both Clint and Allie, really, we kind of struggled a little bit on day one. The weather was not conducive for PRs and records, but at the same juncture in time, they carried the day for us.
The men's 4x800 relay team also set a school record at 8:18:32. Tell us about that race.
Our four guys in our strength of our team, really both men's and women's groups are really our mid distances. Sage, Kyle, Adam, and Dylan have been chomping at the bit to do the 4x8 outdoors at some point in time, because they really feel they can not only set a school record, but legitimately they have an opportunity. They can continue to get a little lower, possibly to qualify for NAI Nationals. I say that they're still several seconds off, but we're really just hitting our stride, and they haven't all been healthy from that standpoint. Kyle and Dylan both have had some internal health concerns, and then Sage and Adam have dealt with some aches and pains. So along those lines, it's the first time really they were very healthy, and we really acquitted ourselves well. Against Marion and Indiana Wesleyan, some folks that have already qualified for nationals in this event, we stood toe to toe, and their splits were very good. Almost all of them were around 201, 202, and we're very pleased about that. I think that will bode well for the conference.
You also mentioned that the women's team also set a record in the 4x800 relay. That school record was set at 11:07:83 on day 2. Tell us about that.
Ladies, again, in our core group, we've been trying different things out for our 4x4, 4x1, 4x8 relays, and really just trying to find the right fit and the right match, put the jigsaw pieces all together. And we really felt, with Haley being ailing and being a little bit sick, she had unfortunately encountered and had a mild concussion at Transylvania, and is still getting back in the swing of things. But we really felt, that they could turn, splits in about 220 to 230. May not have been that competitive at this particular meet, but it's going to bode well for the conference. From that standpoint, Haley, Grace, Morgan, and Kelsey Beaner all acquitted themselves very well and kept to that particular strategy. And even though that's maybe not be set in stone, we might have one other addition or change there that might help us go a little bit faster. But the four women there acquitted themselves very well and had a great effort.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the placings in the men. Dylan Cope, he placed 7th in the 800 at 157, also a school record. And Clint Swanson, 7th in the 400 at 50.35. And the men's relay team, 7th in the 4x800 at 8:18:32. Tell us about all those.
Well, from the men's side, Dylan has been sick with flu-like symptoms and is just getting back into form. Unique to that, we've been kind of bringing him along. He's tried his hand at other events to try to get him back. He's done the javelin, and is going to be working on the discus, and even tried long jumping a little bit just to try to get him back on the swing of things. Recently, he finally got his endurance and aerobic endurance back, and started running intervals again. And unique to this experience, in 157, 158. And when we finished, I said, how you feel? I could go faster. I could go lower. I said, I just need to pace it out better. I'm getting stronger. And not only to set a school record, Clinton, again, has been very consistent. He already has a school record in 50 seconds, and I feel, that the sky's the limit at some point in time. He'll break the 50-second barrier, and, conference would be an excellent opportunity for that. 4x8 team, again, the strength of our teams are mid distances, and if we can continue to be sharp and be able to do the relay in right around 2 minutes or even less, that's going to bode very well. And like I mentioned earlier, I really legitimately feel that if we're focused enough, we continue to prepare well and practice, all the men that I just mentioned will have a chance to move on. We haven't talked about Seth Prince, but he's preparing for the half marathon event too. And while running and participating in main track events like the 5K and the 10K race and now the steeplechase. And he too has a legitimate shot to possibly qualify for nationals by doing well in the half marathon and eventually the marathon. So. Our men at this particular event, day one, not as great a day as we would have liked, but day two couldn't have turned out better for us.
All right, we'll talk about the women now. Teresa Holzman, 29th in the 5K with a time of 22 minutes, 38.5 seconds. School record there as well. Tell us about her.
Teresa's performance has been unique. We've been preparing for really the 1500, and Teresa is kind of our if you went in baseball, she's our utility player. If you need Teresa to run the 400, Teresa will run the 400 and do it in a time right around 104 and be competitive. You ask her to do the 800, the same thing. Mm-hmm. But really the longer distances are more her cup of tea. She came back, really had an outstanding day, not only the 1500, lowering her own personal time in the 1500, but we've pressed her into service in the 5K. Mm-hmm. And on cross country, she's been around 23 minutes and has gotten a little stronger, but on the track, she's a little bit quicker. And while the standings don't necessarily, and the placings don't necessarily, she kept a good pace all the way around, a little under 7-minute pace for most of the race. Got a little stronger in the last mile, and I think that'll quit well and bode well for the conference meet. But she had an outstanding performance and really came home very strong, and hence why she has a new school record.
Right. Well, the team placed 7th in the 4x800, setting a school record at 11:07.83, and 9th in the 4x400 at 4:32.74. Tell us about those.
Along those lines, I'll start with the 4x4 team. Again, in both relays, we're still, Coach Sanders and I and Michael Coyle, we've talked a lot about missing and matching. We don't feel we've quite found the right pieces to go as fast as we can, but again, the 4x4 team is very close, I think, to being settled. They had an excellent race on Saturday. Again, we're trying to keep it about 104 splits, and we weren't too far off from that. We gave Morgan Stanley a little breather after having done multiple events and allowed, Amber Dwyer, along with, again, a couple others, to give it a whirl, Alexis Brazier, and see what we could do. And I was very pleased with the results. They lowered their time, the 4x4 time. 4x8 team, again, this was the first time we had the women have had a chance to do that. Again, we feel like we have the right combinations, but we might try one other thing here during this week of practice and time trials to see, if a different foursome will work just a little bit better. We're kind of splitting hairs. It's kind of like a golfer that is routinely shooting 5 under par. All of a sudden, well, I want to get better. I want to be at 7 under par. So we're a little greedy in that aspect, but we got really good, strong efforts from both relay groups.
All right, well, let's take a look ahead to the KIAC meet. That's going to be on April 24th and 25th. Mm-hmm. What do you expect to see there?
Well, fast times. One of the things we learned from Little State that we want to apply to the conference, we're not just happy to go to this event. We're not happy to go to Little State and just compete and just to show up. We really feel we have a legitimate chance, regardless of how many athletes we have, mm-hmm. and we'll be facing 2 teams that will probably bring about 40 to 50 athletes. We'll have 21 blackjack, so to speak, and I really feel that's an ace in our hole because all 21 of our athletes will give their very best effort. We have a legitimate chance in 13 events to score points, if not win those events. And our coaching staff has done a lot of handicapping and looking at Point Park and Rio Grande and Brescia. Asbury will bring some individuals. We kind of felt the preseason polls were a little premature. I'm not a big fan of those, and anyway, at that juncture, and the long and the short of it, we were picked to finish 3rd. And I've reiterated that to our team since we got back from Little State, that we were picked to finish 3rd. And the point being that we're going to Rio Grande to compete and compete to win. Mm-hmm. And we have a legitimate chance, both men and both women. The women will be very competitive. Point Park and the women's team there are quite strong. Rio Grande, especially in the distance women, are going to be really strong. It will be a tough challenge. And for the men as well. But when we compared numbers and times and distances, we really did feel as a staff that that our team is going to show up and compete well. And I feel really good about that after what we went through this past weekend. So we're not just happy to be there. We're going to show up and bring some trophies home and bring some medals home.
All right, Coach. Well, congratulations on a great weekend.
Thank you.
Best of luck in the future.
Appreciate it.
We'll be right back with more Inside IUE Sports.
I'm Dr. Ganesh Ramachandran, the region's only hand specialist at Reed Orthopedic Center. Patients love how easy it is having everything under one roof and how easy it is to get here. right here at Reed Orthopedic Center, right here in Richmond.
And welcome back to Inside IUE Sports. That sound you just heard means that it is time for Wolf Center. Wolf Center is where we take a look back at last week's IU East results and ahead to next week's schedule. You can download the Wolf House sound you just heard for free by downloading the free IU East Athletics app at the iTunes App Store or at Google Play. Now taking a look back at last week's results, on April 10th, men's tennis fell to Asbury 9-0. Connor Kramer had the closest matches for IU East. On April 11th, men's tennis beat Asbury 7-0. Seth Gard won at number 5 singles. On April 10th and 11th, women's golf competed at the Indiana Wesleyan University Invite. Amanda Thackeray had season best scores. Also on April 10th and 11th, men's track and field placed 12th at the Little State Championships. Dylan Cope placed 7th in the 800, which was a school record. Also on April 10th and 11th, women's track and field placed 12th at the Little State Championships. Alexis Brasher had her career best in the javelin. On April 18th, men's golf will be at the Bethel Invite. It's the final round, and it will begin at noon at the Blackthorn Golf Course in South Bend. Also on April 19th, women's tennis will take on Kentucky Wesleyan at Glenn Miller Park at 1 p.m. On April 21st, tennis will be at home against Central State at 4 p.m. And on April 22nd, tennis will host Central State at Glenn Miller Park for the regular season finale beginning at 4 p.m. On April 24th and 25th, track and field will be at the KIAC meet at the University of Rio Grande. And on April 24th and 25th, men's tennis will be at the KIAC tournament held at Brescia University. And last but not least, on April 24th and 25th, men's golf will host the KIAC tournament for the first time at the Liberty Country Club. That concludes this week's episode of Inside IUE Sports. I'm your host, Caleb Gillock. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.